Well, guys, welcome back to the Big Screen Show. I'm Alex,
Is Wyatt.
and today we are here to give you guys our review of the latest movie, or the Ryan Coogler, Michael B. Jordan film Sinners. And let me tell you, this like probably be like one of the best movies of this year so far coming out for me. What's your thoughts on that so far, Wyatt?
Man, I definitely think it's one of the best movies of the year, which really isn't saying much. We haven't had that many great movies come out this year. I think what would compete with it might be Mickey 17. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I would have said Mickey 17, but this other movie that I saw beforehand, I think it's probably going to be like another top one, is the A24 film Warfare.
Okay, okay. Um, I saw Warfare. I don't think it compares to Sinners or Mickey 17. Um, but you could say Warfare might be in the top five just because the mediocrity that we've seen from films this year. Uh, but I definitely think Sinners is up there. I asked a couple of other people that I saw it with if they liked Mickey 17 or Sinners better, and most of them said Mickey 17, which I was surprised about. I do think, and we'll get to it. I do think the vampires threw a lot of people off because most people I saw it with went in not seeing a trailer. They did not know it was a vampire movie. I didn't know it was a vampire movie until these vampires popped up. And I think for me, getting into it, first half of the movie, 10 out of 10. Second half, when the vampires came out, 8 out of 10. And
Damn, dude.
yeah. I think I feel like the vampires killed the movie. When we get into spoilers, I can not kill the movie, but made it less of. I really thought they had something going with the storytelling and everything that they were building within the first half of the movie. We'll get into it when we get to spoilers. My caveats: I really felt like they built a great story halfway through, and then they just kind of threw it away to bring vampires into it. But with that in regard, it was a great movie. It was a great movie about some old time scammers, you could say. They like the scammers of nowadays, you know? Um and you really have some great things about this movie. The character building, you have that aspect of the go to church that Boyd has been told to go to church, the preacher's son, and he's interested in the nightlife like all youngins are, man. That push pull type thing. Music was A1. Acting was A1. A couple of plot holes with the vampires that we'll get to. But like I said, the first half of the movie was a 10 out of 10. I was like, wow, I didn't want to leave my seat. Um, Given all that together, I'm right in the middle, man. I don't know if it's an 8. I don't know if it's a 9 for me. It's like a 8.5. I'm gonna have to go with, huh? I'll go with a 9 for right now, and then I'm gonna
Uh,
rewatch it, and I'm gonna give it my official rating. But I'll go a 9 out of 10 for right now.
oh, all right, that's good, fair. But honestly, for me, this movie is a 10 out of 10 because I actually saw the movie twice. Once on Thursday opening night, and then on and then on the Saturday afternoon. Because honestly, with each rewatch, you just start to notice a lot more things, and it gets better and better. And personally, the movie was like and I do agree. The first act of the film was like honestly a great solid opening, like great deliberate pacing. It's a very good setup to like all these characters and greater connections and everything. And honestly, overall, everybody that was probably like a supporting cast member, everything for like Michael B. Jordan, Haley Steinfeld, even Miles Catton, who actually is like his first acting debut, because like that his first acting career like ever, this first, and he did like an amazing job. The performances all around was straight up phenomenal. Even the main antagonist of the film, Jack O'Connell, who plays the character Remick. And honestly, this movie just had like so much subtext that's basically used for like music and like the Black culture and surprisingly even Irish culture, which I never did not get or understand until my second watching, and things started to click more and more for me. I think because like the rewatchability just helps to try to understand more depth to the movie than what's happening. And I will say, when we get more into spoiler territory, I'm not gonna say this whole vampire thing really came out of nowhere. And I'm not just saying that just because, like, you know me, I've seen the trailer, so like the whole vampire aspect, I knew it was there. I just was not expecting it to be like coming like that late into the game of the movie, for
Mm-hmm.
which honestly was surprising, but it still kept things real tense and wrapped up. But honestly, the greatest thing is like the music overall is just like a banger for the whole score, especially when the movie was literally composed by Ludwig Göransson, who's like just like one of like the best like music composers in cinema working to this day. I mean, dude is it was just straight up legendary. But honestly, yeah, the movie is solid 10 out of 10 for me. Just do like the amazing, incredible acting performances, its cinematography, greater emotional points throughout the film, even heavily enhanced by the music that plays itself as a character in the movie itself, which then is a part of the whole basis of the culture established in there, and so much depth within it. And honestly, as I got to thinking about it, this movie is basically a great representation of what the title is, which I'll go into more later. But for me, the vampire thing didn't think detracted anything. It just helps to make it more intriguing of what could have been like a regular normal type of film that goes on more like the racial social tensions of that era, which we've seen plenty of times in other movies based on like black people within that time frame. So I think this just kind of helps give like a greater sense of attention to be put into it, just done in a really unique way. Where this movie does kind of feel like a combination of like Django Unchained with the movie From Dusk Till Dawn, but with like greater music put into it. That was kind of like a whole musical adjacent type of film as well.
Man, I disagree. I do think the vampires really changed the movie. Uh, they were I don't want to give any away any spoilers, so I don't want to really give my explanation. But I felt like they were building so many stories within the story, so many climactic things that were going to happen later on in this story. They were building up to all of this, and then they just threw all that away for the vampires, which didn't even give us a complete story. We're still left with questions about the vampires, you know. Uh, so I do think it really had adding the vampires and really had an impact on it. I think it would have been a better story without the vampires.
Hmm. We'll discuss that one because let's just get into a spoiler territory right now. So
Uh huh.
basically, guys, thank you for watching with us so far. So if you have not seen this movie, I recommend going to stop this video, go right now to see it. It is honestly like one of the
Yeah.
best movies that come out this year. Like no cap, like it's just phenomenal, amazing. For anyone who has seen the movie already, then we're gonna continue on here. So this has been your spoiler warning. So let's get into it, Wyatt. Let's start with you. What you got?
Man, the throwing the vampires into it, I really felt like they left all the other storylines behind. The just going off the first one that pops in my head, they robbed two separate people up in Chicago. And they kept on mentioning this. This is where they got the Irish beer. This is where they got all the
Italian wine stuff.
yeah. This is where they hit their lick. So they rob people for this, and in the back of our minds, these people are coming, right? Yeah,
No.
in the back of
Well, I
my mind,
wasn't.
they're coming for revenge. You know, they gonna come get these boys that just hit a lick on them, man. Uh, they're gonna in my back of my mind, these guys were coming to get revenge. By the end of the day, they never filled that out. That never happened. You know?
Yeah. I also feel like you're kind of putting way too much emphasis on that scene because the whole thing about them stealing stuff, it was like only mentioned like once between like Steinfeld's character, Mary, and then Michael B. Jordan as one of the twins, Stack. It was like mentioned once after they set up their juke joint, but again, also showed their backstories was they are soldiers from World War I, and then they were also went into as gangsters from Chicago, and then they had round up and gotten some money to come back to their home like Mississippi to then start this juke joint for like their community. And the fact that they mentioned that they actually had stolen from like the rival organized crime gangs back in Chicago. But the thing is, they were also shows that they are intelligent. They are really smart and crafty because they're soldiers. But again, Smoke, which is Michael B. Jordan, other twin character, who is like more of like the more serious dude compared to like Stack, who's like more of like the wild one, kind of like has more charm into himself. But say they are very intelligent, and they basically had set up the fact that they basically had set up those heists to where it felt like the other families robbed each other. Because then again, because I feel like if they were trying to put that thing in there, it kind of ruins like what the movie is establishing more, where it's kind of going more like the basis of like the blues and black culture and this community being brought together. Which also gives me the idea for the fact that the movie was without sinners, because during this time when it came to like the blues music and everything, it basically the church and other people just thought of that as like the devil's music, or basically sinful music, due to the fact that it's music that's used for the community where they're just like more free and open, and there's kind of like dancing with each other, giving like things like lust, joy, and happiness, which is kind of meant to be like kind of the antithesis of like church, where they basically just kind of like basically just don't think that's any just they hate it because it's something that goes against God. And also a bit, it kind of shows more of like the kind of like the hypocrisy of the church within it, especially with the perspective of Sammy, which is like Smoke and Stack's cousin, who loved playing the blues music and wanted to perform, but his dad, who's like a preacher at the church, just says that he shouldn't be doing this music and everything, where it's just wrong, and he should be putting his time more into church. Which again is also even more of greater subtext, the fact that oftentimes when it comes to like church and the black community, if something they don't like that certain thing, they will try and tie you down and stop you from doing something that you love, which isn't very progressive even within your own community, because like you're stopping someone who's like has this passion for something that, even though yes they don't agree with it, but you still accept it for that person, because like they're judging you without like fully knowing or even experiencing it. So the fact is that everybody that comes to that juke joint want to listen to blues music. It creates a much greater bond and sense of community within each other, much more than what it would be for the church in itself. Because again, church is good, it's greater for like greater sense of redemption, finding something to hope for. But it is kind of a bit of hypocritical to the fact that it's something that's said to be more open and accepting for people's like mistakes and flaws, yet they cast judgment on this specific piece of music just because it gives a greater sense of emotion and makes you feel more free and more free. And I guess yes, can be kind of a bit seductive in a sense, mostly due to like one of the ladies in there that Sammy was crushing on, Perlene, who was a married woman and basically went to that joint to basically like, get with Sammy here and play his music, because again, she was coming there to have an affair. She had an attraction to that dude from the jump. You could just tell when they had their first meeting.
Hmm.
So honestly, I feel like anything that you're thinking of when it came to like, other gangs, or even like with
They
Mary's character having like a rich husband, stuff like that, I feel like that would detract more from what the movie is trying to do in this case. Because
they
then
could
that
have
goes
done
from
they
being
could have done
more,
all that. They could have still done all of that.
I couldn't have done that way, because then you're just kind of made that more into like a regular
Why
black gangster crime movie.
why couldn't they have done all the stuff you just listed and still had the party at the juke joint instead of the vampires pulling up? You have everybody pulling up. All the enemies that everybody in that juke joint has made. You have the gangsters pulling up from Chicago. You have the KKK pulling up. You got that bitch that was cheating's husband pulling up. You know. You got who else was an enemy that they made that could have showed up? Dang, wasn't there somebody else cheating? Oh, you could have had the white woman's husband show up with a gang of his friends. You know, there was all these people in the movie were getting into a little trouble. You know, they were
Yeah, I
all
gotta
making
say,
enemies. They were all wronging somebody. Think of the climax of the movie as like all these people are coming to handle their business. You know,
Yeah,
I thought that would have
yeah.
been crazy. Like, like everybody showing up at one time, or they're fighting it out with the KKK crew, and they beat the KKK crew, and then the gangsters pull up, and they gotta fight the fucking gangsters too. Like, bruh, that would have been lit as hell.
Probably, but I feel like that one does fall more into like regular cliche. And I guess and again, we see by the end of it, like how quickly Smoke basically took out all the KKK members, and he was just a single one man army, honestly. So I think that thing went quick because again, it just shows
That
how much smarter he is compared to like these regular Southern racist
Bro,
KKK members.
that scene was unrealistic. He just ran out with a BAR in front of everybody and killed everybody when they had cover. They had cover behind the cars and everything, bro.
Yeah,
You
some of them
telling
were
me
still, yeah, but some of them were still out in the
15,
open, and
15
some
folks
were.
can't hit him more than one time? He only got shot one time out of 15, 20 people that pulled up.
Uh, I will
And
say
he
there
was
was one angle that was saying that where he should have been hit. I will say that yeah, that's true. But again, that's supposed to be more of like greater ending greater closing climax that was already set up from the beginning of the movie. That one was set up way more than what you're saying about the whole gangs and then the white lady's husband. Those are like just one-off mentions that didn't really build to anything. That would have just felt like random. While this one was already set up from the beginning, because as it was stated, that whole juke joint that Smoke and Stack bought was literally was literally a slaughterhouse kill box because it was also noted for that too because like they knew that this dude he was white and again a lot of heavy KKK activity in their where they're from in that state of Mississippi and
but
everything.
it still
Plus,
don't
if
even add up.
no, it's
Why
definitely adds
why
up because the
No,
slaughterhouse thing was all set up.
why would the KKK people go there during the daytime? Why wouldn't they come there at night when they were partying? No wonder nobody was fucking there. They all left. It's morning time. They sharecropping. Like,
No, because they said, because man, I will mostly say that because it's like giving the it's like when you're getting ready to kill an animal, you have them like giving like them one good day or one good overall night for something, and then boom, by the next day, you just end up killing them. But again, are they
But
no
then
one's
why would they pull up? Why would they pull up when nobody was there? They pulled up the next morning. The party's over. They're back.
nothing.
They're going back to work, Like,
But let's establish that. Let's be honest.
even if the vampires weren't a thing, even if nobody died, the vampire shit didn't happen. The party's over. It's morning time. Everybody already went home. Like,
Um,
if a party just would have happened, you know?
that's like saying that when people are clubbing all night, you're saying that everybody's gone by morning when there are still a lot of people there. Because again, they've literally
I mean,
they've literally used that warehouse like so many times to kill other black people. Because like when Smoke and Stack was asking about when was the last time you cleaned the floors, and it's like yeah we cleaned the floors, but it's like what's all this on the floor then? And then we were basically made to assume that the dude when he spit on the floor, he thinks oh, maybe that's just some spit and stuff that are trying to show other people this location. But like, no, that's literally innocent black people's blood throughout the thing. Because it's again, that stuff has been set up on there because you can already see it. Because again, due to like already the racial tension from the get go already, the fact that they knew that this dude was white and probably was KKK, even though the dude said like, no, there's no KKK in this area, But again, and then it's all set up where Smoke and Stack had already said that since we bought this is our land, our property. So if we see any of you guys coming here, we gonna kill you on sight. And that's the proper setup compared to any other things that you were talking about on that end, because those are just one-offs. That's not anything that's made to be any bigger, especially considering the fact that also with Mary, again, she does have a very mixed heritage, and the fact that she had never wanted to be white or be a part of have any aspect or want anything involved in the racist white society, as she said to Stack from the juke joint. She never wanted to be white. She never wanted to have a white husband. And again, a greater part of the thing is she originally came to Mississippi because her mother died, and clearly her husband's like he clearly doesn't give a fuck or anything like that. He's probably like one of those regular white business dudes who like just wants a wife on the side and probably has like another white woman on the side just cheating. So again, he doesn't care enough to actually come with her to where her home was to visit her mother-in-law's grave. So honestly, there's really nothing to even put there, so everything was already set up perfectly. Nothing that you're saying really adds anything to where something like that, where this whole cliche climactic shootout thing would work, since that's not really a plot hole in anything in there.
How I don't understand how it would not work. The way that they did it doesn't work.
Sure, they did. Because again, she said, because again, Mary was literally going to visit to see her mother who had died.
I get the one off of her husband not showing up. Like okay, that doesn't have to happen. But the thing with the gangsters and a proper shootout with the KKK and just going that way would have been a lot more entertaining than what they did with the vampires.
Now, it probably would have been, but again, the whole thing with gangsters, it literally shows how smart Smoke and Stack are as criminals together. Because again, they literally set up to where the gangs were stealing from each other. They made it look that way. So really, that makes them come out clean, and also
Man,
shows their greater intelligence. 'Cause let's be honest, gangsters, they try to make themselves smarter than they are, but oftentimes they're pretty much just simplistic dudes who are just ready to just fire at somebody because they already had like tension already within the gangs they're warring with. So, if anything, that's easy to
I don't
manipulate
know
and take
about that.
advantage of. Come on, man. You've seen throughout history there are a lot of criminals.
The best gangs in Chicago are easy to manipulate and easy to get away from.
I mean, come on. During that time, criminals and gangsters weren't really all that smart. They were all just ready to gun and blaze and just extort and bribe.
Bro,
And yeah, they probably could have like a bunch of people or cops in their
these are
pocket. So
criminals and gangsters. They run Chicago, bro. These aren't the this isn't some kids at recess. Like
that doesn't mean they're above getting taken advantage of. That's the thing. Like think about Al Capone. That man got taken out due to tax evasion, and he thought he was above that shit, and he thought he was smart, but he wasn't. He got literally taken out by an accountant.
man, I don't know the history of Al Capone, but calling Al Capone not smart is just inaccurate, man. This is yeah.
I mean, it probably is a little bit inaccurate, but it doesn't change the fact that he still got taken out by an accountant for tax evasion compared to all the other crimes he did.
Man, I mean, I don't know. I don't know anything about that. I can't speak on Al Capone's intelligence, but I can tell you that the gangs of Chicago at this period of time were not very easy to manipulate by just two twins.
I don't know. I don't know because it kind of depends. Because again, they sort of said that Smoke and Stack were rumored to have said to have actually been or have worked with Al Capone. So that means they already
So
knows
they should be dumb. They should be dumb as fuck. From what you saying, they should be stupid as hell.
no,
Yeah,
because like honestly, I forget was Al Capone Italian?
yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. Was there another warring faction with Capone that he was doing aside from the other gangs and stuff like that? Was there like because there had to have been like a rival Italian gangs too, right?
I'm not sure. I'm not
Because
sure.
if there was, then that kind of also explains it too. Because like, if they weren't robbing from Capone, which that would be a huge mistake, and that would actually add weight to me. It was just like some no name random other crime gangs that weren't tied to Capone. Then that could probably work. Because if they just left Capone's work, and then before they left, they robbed these other two gangs and stuff, and just made it blame each other and leave
Man,
Capone out of that, then that could honestly help fix
and
that
then
situation.
that don't make sense because if you're running with Capone, there's really no out to running with Capone. Like you either die or you die. Like
Yeah,
there's no like not running with the gang anymore. So what's up with
yeah,
that?
yeah. I know that was very
These
clear.
guys are turncoats. Like
Honestly, I don't even know, man. But besides the whole point of that one, I think also again shows the point of that how like where another aspect was like the racism exploitation of like black labor and everything, because that's the whole point of why they came back home, where it's like work with the devil you know, because Chicago and in Mississippi it's no different except that Chicago is basically just it's just tall buildings and streets and stuff, us than just you know, props
but
and dirt.
but later in the story we found out that their first reasoning for coming back home was a lie. That they really stole from folks and that's why they had to get out of town. You know?
They built as it goes into later different things where it could say they made up money for either working for the Capone or from what one of the Asian guys, Bao, who's a close friend of theirs, says they probably either went to Chicago and probably robbed like a huge casino, or but they never went too far into it. They were kind of like very vague. But again, that also kind of goes more into like Smoking Stack's criminal esque in element due to the fact they've been criminals for so long and also war veterans, so they learn to keep it vague and not share too much, which fits into their characters. But the only thing I will say that's confirmed fact is the fact they did get some money, but the thing that they actually stole was the wine and stuff like that. That's the thing that's confirmed to be stolen. Everything else was basically money they had gotten from some other illegal means from working in Chicago after they had finished working in World War One.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, okay. Going into getting away from it, I just think they could the story could have been better. They were building a great story where all these climactic things could have been happening at one time, but unfortunately that didn't happen. Uh,
Unfortunately for you, I think this still thing still works
they
seamlessly.
put
So
they
works
put
seamlessly.
vampires in it. I don't know what why they put the vampires in it. They were like, in this day and age, was it too? Did he not want to be the guy that had a movie about black folks killing white folks? Like, and
I'm pretty sure that's far from what he was suggesting on that one. Especially since like the opening of the movie literally starts with the aspect of like people with the passion for music can open up the way for like the past, the present, and the future, but also lets evil in. So that's honestly a bigger clue that something wasn't just gonna be like the regular old white man stuff. It mentioned like the devil, evil, and supernatural element. So I'm not gonna say that the vampire stuff came out of
man,
nowhere, even if you didn't see the trailers. It's like it's set up right there.
they were setting up the devil. They weren't setting up necessarily vampires.
No, but hey, that's might well be the closest thing, especially with the way that the vampire stuff Remick was basically designed with the red eyes and everything, and especially his final look when he was getting ready to like kill Sammy. That might as well be as well close to what the devil could look like in that perspective, in a certain perspective.
Man, well, when I think of the devil, I think of him using demons. You know, not using vampires. Vampires is a fantasy. You know,
But it's still
de-
supernatural.
demons are actually like real. Um, but
You know, demons could be real, yes and no, or even us people could be like a certain entity of demons due to our behavior and stuff like that. Because like there's a way of seeing that both in the literal sense, but also in the metaphorical. But the way the vampires are used more in this, especially with the fact that Remick is actually Irish, is the fact is also another way of showcasing the fact that Irish and Black culture did face certain amounts of discrimination that fits within there, where it's a culture that is different but surprisingly very similar on how they were treated in that certain area. You could say that where us black people were treated worse due to the fact that so it was kid taken as slaves, punished and tortured. But then around the Irish, they were basically basically kicked out and taken from their own homes if they didn't, even if like they were taken from their own homes or kicked out due to like the Christianity, and also the fact that of course in their homeland there was like a whole drought and famine and stuff like that, so they were forced to leave in some way or another. Because one of the major thing is the music which was used, which one of the was like Rocky Road to Dublin, which was used in like a major important musical scene, because that has a long history of the fact that based on a story of an Irishman who went to England but faced discrimination due to the fact of like how he talked, how he walked, and how he acted, which also kind of created the stereotype that the fact that every Irishman is meant to be like a violent, vulgar, drunk, and things like that. And also, again, that also has like their own sense of greater community where they use like music and the lyrics of it, where normally it would be something that's sort of tragic and depressing, but it's used in the community as something like very positive and something that's used for like their sense of like fun and freedom from like anything stressful or anything that's discriminatory, but it all helps them together, like strength of community and all that.
okay, okay. I mean, I did like the connection with the music. You know, I liked
Mhm.
the Irish jig outside when everybody was dancing was one of my favorite scenes of the movie. I thought that was pretty unique. But going back to the vampires, I gotta get the answers to these vampires too. Um, the vampires. Well, we'll start with this. What do the vampires represent to you?
Yeah, vampires represent at least two different things for me. One of them was, of course, I explained already about with Remick being Irish, but another thing could be also the fact that it's like yes, Remick is also Irish and also trying to give this sense of creating like community and bringing other people into it. It's also I think it's also a great of like thing of like assimilation where they basically want to take someone else's other culture and bring it into theirs and use it as their own because again, that's also another thing that was also used as another Irish thing, where the Irish then became from like hated by the whites, then also they became assimilated into like their white culture, and then also creates another cyclical sense of like racism and discriminatory because it's all because like even though it's not fully stated, but you can feel it with like Remick's words, which again, after watching this movie for a second time, I understood there's like more depth to his character it's just not explicitly stated, which I kind of think is also kind of becoming a common thing we're not seeing nowadays in film due to the fact that most films nowadays, the writing is not that good or doesn't want to do anything smart with it. Where now we just feel like everything has to be explained to us or stated.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I think this kind of makes me appreciate this movie more due to the fact that even though Remick was someone who faced persecution, because like I'm assuming this dude is like over 1,300 years old because like the movie takes place in 1932, but the sense of that fact that he was like kicked out of his own home due to like religion and Christianity, which is around like the 1800s. So he's been around for a pretty long time to understand it. So he understands the black persecution and everything. But I think it's most the fact that because he's so trying to form his own community, he's basically is trying to force that sense onto others and be able to take that to be as part of their own. So he's then kind of becoming what he's kind of becoming like the exact people that he hated that was evil
Well,
done to him, and he's doing it to them now.
it just made me think of something. If dude was around this long, how come he doesn't have that community of people? How come he doesn't have more vampires with him when this time comes? He starts off a solo vampire with the first time we see him, you know?
Yeah, that was a good question. I could mostly assume that due to the fact that when we see him for the first time, he's getting hunted by like the Native American hunters. I'm not gonna say that they were the exact same people throughout his history of generation that was hunting his kind. I would say he's lived a long time and has probably tried to create this whole sense of community, and everything like that. But they probably either died out because as we've shown the Native Americans know more about the whole vampire stuff and how to get rid of them. As with since also as well, we found out there's like one person in the juke joint as in the black community where Annie, who's also kind of like she's kind of like the more spiritual voodoo person expert in that community. So she's
Mm-hmm.
one who knows a bit more about it. And she probably explained it much better. But I think it's probably the fact that since that Remick's appearance here in this area is kind of most closely tied to the fact of like Sammy's music and the way he plays that's meant to kind of like open up and attract someone like Kim.
So he's a vampire and he's a shapeshifter.
I would say no, not shapeshifter, but he is more a vampire that is more closely probably more closely tied to music and the folklore due to the fact of what's stated in the movie within this certain context. Because again, it does follow the regular vampire rule of like we have to be invited in. I bite you, you turn into a vampire. Weakness to the sun and all that. But it also kind of adds this new kind of element. At least I'm assuming it's new, where once he bites someone and they become part of his like community, his flock, he basically sees all their memories and everything like that. And their memories are his memories are theirs, and so on and so forth. So it kind of creates more of that community aspect of it that's kind of closely tied to what this film is.
Hmm. Definitely some plot holes. with these
Eh,
vampires. Now that we're
a
getting
little,
into it,
a
and this is
little
why
bit.
we needed more background of the lore and kind of the rules of these vampires that they had going on, and they were utilizing in this film. Though I do think the movie would have been better without the vampires, I do think there is a lot going on with the vampires in terms of hidden messages or parallels to the vampires, maybe to something in today's society. Um, Off the top of my head, it first came off kind of like the liberal whitewashing of culture, and you kind of mentioned that in one of your reasonings too. Um, because even in the scenes, they're kind of like, let's overcome with equality and unity. Let's all get along. And you get the feeling, you get the sense of it that it's all BS. And I appreciate that. And it was very interesting about the vampires. I found myself thinking, like, what is the parallel that they're trying to make here with the vampires? And there's so many different parallels that people could relate to the vampires, um, which makes you think. And I really applaud directors and writers that make these parallels and make us think.
Yeah,
The
especially when it's like written well enough to where it actually lets it like build a scene to kind of create this sense of like time where it gives you moments to think. It also feels very reflective instead of like, explicit. Here it is. We know what we're talking about. We're smart. Whereas this one, it feels like very more in timely and more nuanced. Again, also due to the fact that I think it also helps that it was written by like by a black man whose filmography so far has been really relevant to like the black culture and everything in itself with all its past movies and other cultures and such. So yeah, it does really help that this does feel more strong as compared to like others from like in the most recent years, I would say.
Yeah, I feel like the vampires kind of just like stealing black culture a little bit. And we
Yeah,
and we see people doing that in today's society, you know. So I really feel like there's a lot of hidden messages within the vampires, which I appreciate them giving those that made the movie serviceable. It still made the movie good. Rather, if they would have just thrown some vampires in and not given us this detail, given us this thought that we had to have, given us these parallels, it made the movie so much better than just throwing vampires in there, you know.
yeah, exactly. That's why that's why I say that with this movie, with multiple watches, it honestly just gets even better because you then start to notice all that stuff. Because then you then start to notice even more and more things, even some stuff that you probably didn't even know about it. Because like after I saw this movie a second time, I literally did not know anything much about how this relates to like Irish culture or anything. I just get with like the more usual like black culture stuff, but it goes far deeper than that. Because like I've been seeing like either on all over the internet, like Instagram, Twitter, even TikTok, getting a lot more recent searches about like Irish culture, the greater deeper meaning of like the music with the blues, everything, even like parts of like Christianity and the church and like how it's kind of is basically was made and forced upon in some other cultures or to make them more united and probably more easily controllable in some sense. Because it
Hmm.
was said in this movie where religion was basically forced upon them, whereas music such as the blues and stuff was taken and shared among generations of black people from Africa even up to now, which makes the scene where Sammy is playing for the juke joint, and then we see this whole thing of like black people and music from like the past to the present with like electric guitar, DJ turnstiles,
Yeah, yeah.
even the classical instruments and stuff like that, where literally where the music itself is its own character and just basically just sums up what it literally means to everybody within the
Look,
community.
I love that part of the movie. I
Yeah, that was my
love
favorite
I
scene.
love the night of the juke joint. Like, this is what I'm a DJ, so this is what like we do, bro. We plan shows, we plan events, and I love that the story was them planning an old event. Like
Yeah,
them planning this night. I love that part of the story. People thought it was slow in the beginning, but I loved it. I was like, how are they going to build this event up? How are they going to get there? What they got the spot? Like, I was I was I was into it. And the night of the juke joint, you had that scene, but you also had all these different musicians that were singing and playing throughout the
Mhm.
night. Because
Yeah.
you had that scene, but you had Sammy's performance. You had the girl that was up there singing because she introduced herself as a singer off rip at the train station because they had a little conversation, said that she sings, blase blase, and then she ended up singing that night too. You had the guy with the blues guy, the harmonica guy. He
Oh
was
yeah,
one of my
Slim.
favorite. He probably my favorite character, to be honest.
Yeah,
Everything
yeah.
he said was funny. You know.
Yeah, even when he's not saying anything, his reaction to certain situations is very funny too. So like
Mhm.
he's like the funniest character in that movie. It was
Most
perfect.
definitely. Most definitely. My favorite character. And I love the night of the juke joint. It was great. Like, man, hit A1, A1, A1. That's why I said it was a 10. It was a 10 out of 10 until the damn vampires pulled up and tried to get in that bitch. Yeah, they should have went home, bro. They should have went on. So they could have just continued the night out at the juke joint. I would have been entertained. Um on the vampires though, there's more plot holes that I'm thinking about. And one thing is, how did they? I don't get how they survived the storming at the mill after the Asian lady said, like, invited them all in. I don't get how they survived. These these vampires were flying into the air. You know, how did they survive 15, 20 of these vampires storming? What, 5, 6 people? They didn't have they didn't
Yeah.
have they didn't have automatic weapons. The girl, the one that was spiritual, the one that played the TSA officer off of Loki.
Oh, Annie.
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. She threw a fuck 350-pound man onto a table and stabbed him. I'm like,
I didn't. No,
bruh,
I think
I'm
that was Michael
200.
B. Jordan's character,
Nah,
or
it was Andy.
someone.
It was Andy. It was Andy, bro. It was
Oh,
Andy. I am for sure on that. She threw him onto the table and stabbed him. I'm like, bruh. I'm like, I can't even do that. I'm like, you know. So I think they should have played that out a little differently. Instead of the Asian lady just inviting them all in, I think they should have escaped or killed them a little bit differently because I felt like that was unrealistic. Because
well,
them
at least they
vampires
didn't
would make
kill.
easy work.
Yeah, well, at least they didn't kill majority of them. Most of the majority of them were mostly killed off literally after Sammy had escaped from the barn, and they actually had killed Remick, and then the rest of the sun came out to burn them all. Because again, majority did die. There's only about like three, four left standing by the end, until it was like literally just Smoke and Sammy by the end of it. 'Cause I think part of it is also because like because like during the fight scene when they were storming it, they got to injure Remick, because that way then because like his pain all the other vampires feel, so that kind of gave them some little bit of breathing room. And also the fact that Slim, the harmonica guy, basically like attracted them with his own blood spurting as they were going up the stairs. So like he was also trying to buy them some time, whereas some of them were up going upstairs, but it was mostly Remick and Michael B. and Stack turned vampire that was up there to help finish it off mostly.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I just felt it was a little unrealistic. I think they should have played that a little differently. One thing that they didn't play out, I really wanted to see a good like one-on-one battle of Michael B. Jordan fighting Michael B. Jordan. You know?
Technically they did. It's just that it was just kind of cutting. It was cutting back and forth between like Sammy and Remick. But again, I feel like if they really focus on one thing too much, we're just kind of wondering, hey, what's going on in the background? Shouldn't he be dead by then? Because like if it's intercutting, it still creates the tension. Because again, because like Sammy is defenseless. Because like he was, he's a good shooter that's defending himself, but like he's not like a major physical threat, unlike his cousins up in there. So it's like intercutting kind of helps with like the pacing a little bit more, where it's believable to some degree that Remick is taking his time, and as well as with the fight between Smoke and Stack is kind of like very serious battle, but also kind of a bit emotionally conflicting, since like Smoke was always close to like literally stabbing his own brother, but as we see by the end of it,
Man,
He just couldn't do it since again he's like been like the protector of like everybody throughout most of the film, even for his own brother since they were kids. Because like Smoke is the one that ended up killing his and Stax's father. He basically protected him during his time in the war up in Chicago. I mean, hell, even Annie literally had to make a mojo bag for Stack just to help keep him. I mean, for Smoke, just to keep his brother and himself safe.
well, I was gonna say they should have done the Smoke and Stack fight when man, I'm getting mixed up. Who's the one who died? Who's the one that got turned into a vampire?
The Stack.
Stack. They should have had the one-on-one fight when Stack woke up in that room that they locked. They should have went at it. They should have went at it inside. But here's another plot hole that I thought about when I thought of my next comment. Why the hell did he run out?
Because remember Annie, because Annie's threw that like pickled garlic in his face, so he had to run out. That thing was like going over his face.
Oh man, okay, and that's why he ran away. Okay, I got you. Because I was like, why the hell did the guy run out of the damn mill of the jukebox, the juke joint? But okay, the garlic makes sense. My other plot hole is the vampire's motive was to get Sammy, right?
Yeah, that was part of it. I think he wanted Sammy the most, but he was still willing to have others in there because to
But
join his
wasn't the
community.
motive like to get Sammy because supposedly with his abilities of the blues, he could control something, or he could control some aspect of these vampires? There's some lore going on there.
No, not exactly. That was like more showcasing the fact. I think this is another form of subtext where like the fact that we have like so like say we have like in modern day where we have like someone like a white person, they see someone with this immense talent and they basically want that and want to control it and want to control that, like someone like in the music industry and wants to take advantage of them. It's
I
always like
see.
similar. It's always like similar to like how like in the movie Elvis, where the Colonel basically brought in Elvis, but then basically manipulated him and used his music and stuff to make money until using
Yeah,
him until his dying days just for
I get
money
that.
because he was a huge gambler, and then he couldn't travel with no passport, so he basically kept Elvis trapped in Vegas.
I get that. But in this movie, they have Sammy with having a supernatural element if he's turned to one of these vampires, and that's the need for him. From my understanding, it was, and
I
there was the
think
necessity to get Sammy out of all the people in that barn. They needed Sammy because he had that supernatural gift.
well, yeah, I think because it's mostly with passion for the music that was like was probably unlike anything the remake has heard in years. Because like when he was facing Sammy in the water, he's like he wants his music, his songs to play music together with his whole community and everything. Because again, music plays a very big significant aspect for this film. Because like the music, in sense, is basically meant like to bring about community, fun, and freedom and joy for everybody and everything.
I know. It just doesn't. It doesn't add up that they wanted Sammy, and at the end of the movie, they let Sammy live a long life. You know,
Well,
if these vampires needed Sammy to upgrade or to control an aspect of the vampires, see, we really don't know because we don't have any
well,
background of the lore and stuff like that. We're just left with these questions. Why is Sammy still alive if y'all's motive was to get Sammy?
well, I think Remix is the one that mainly wanted Sammy, but he still was gonna take everybody else to join his community and everything. But the fact is that the only reason Sammy lived by the end of it was because like Smoke and Stack made a deal with each other that Stack was basically gonna leave Sammy alone to live out his life.
Man, well, what the hell does that mean? They ain't lived up to a word then ever.
Yeah, they did.
They when do they live up to their word?
Remember
They just robbed some folks from Chicago and shit. You know,
I
these
mean,
guys they've been scammers and liars their whole life. Why are they gonna
well,
live up to this now?
well, not scammers and robbers their whole lives. They were criminals for most of their lives and war and soldiers. But there's about two brothers, and from throughout the movie, you know how much they care about each other. So of course they're gonna trust each other's words. They're gonna trust each other's words because they may kill, rob, and cheat other people, but they're not gonna rob or cheat and kill each other in a manner of speaking, because again, they still love each other. Because that shows by the end of the movie when older Sammy and Stack were talking to each other,
I get that.
Stack was basically looking back on the moment to where like that eventful night was the last time he ever saw his brother and got to see the son. So, of course, and plus, Smoke is the older brother, and plus he's taken care of Stack so many years. So of course he's gonna follow up on his brother's wishes and everything because like that's the last thing you ever want to do,
Yeah,
disappoint or lie to his own brother. That's love
I
right there. It's brotherly love.
I get it. I get it. And let's say that happens, and that he lives up to his word. Are there no other vampires that are after
Uh,
Sammy's powers?
no, because the only vampires that were left alive is Mary and Stack.
Why is that?
Because everybody else burned, and as we find out, Smoke never stabbed Stack. And after Annie was killed, Mary was dragged out of the mill by Stack to basically get out of there.
Hmm.
So yeah, everybody else, all the other people that were turned to vampires, they all burned and died. So the only two that were left was just Mary and Stack.
How did they burn and die? What
Remember
did
the
they do?
sun? It was the sun.
Oh, the sun got him. Okay. And they were inside when that happened?
No, Stack was inside. Everybody else was Stack was inside. Everybody else was outside. And for Mary, I'm pretty sure she had found cover somewhere until it became late at night, and then Stack found her because they just been living all these years up until
See?
in the 90s when they met up with older Sammy to check on him after all these years.
Damn. Another plot hole with the white girl. Huh.
What you mean? That's not a plot hole. That's like an easy summit. That's like an easy thing to say.
I know, but them just being the only vampires of their kind now is kind of. Have they not turned any vampires? Have they not bit anybody? Was that guy the only vampire in the world? We just there's not a lot of background and lore
I
that,
don't
and
think that part
they
really.
should have
Yeah,
explained it.
yeah. I don't think that really matters because it doesn't matter what they have been doing during time. It doesn't matter what happened that was based on that night as to how it affected mostly of Sammy and his decision of whether he was going to commit to being
Oh,
part of the church or continue his dream and become a musician.
what attracted the vampires there first? Was it Sammy's music
Yeah, with
that
Sammy's
brought
music.
him? Then why wouldn't it attract other vampires to his music in Chicago? You know,
For all
like
we know, for all we know, Remick might have been just the one vampire that was either in the area or the only one set within that time frame. And they think you're going a little. I think you're focusing way too much on the detail of vampires and stuff, man. Because it's still, again, it's a
it.
very
But
progressive.
when questions are like in the air like this, like I don't know. I'm a smart person. Like I'm clicking on. All the details are clicking for me, but they're they're not fitting. This is the wrong damn. This is the wrong puzzle piece. Fuck.
uh, I'm only just focusing on like the interconnected relationships between everybody within the states of this movie, and that's it. I'm not focusing on like any other outward anything that happened out of the Mississippi and stuff like that. I'm not worried about that.
But they took the movie outside of Mississippi. They took the movie to Chicago, to where Sammy had been playing for the rest of his days.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why the question was raised to me. You know, I'm like, they just let him live all this time. They just come to pay him a visit while he's fucking 90 years old, 80 years old. Yeah, I don't know. The plot holes that I don't know. If I was a director and I watched this movie through, I'm like, oh, there's some plot holes. I'd be like, let's go in and fix these. You know, but
Nah.
they just don't.
You be one of those very, very picky movie directors that most people like, but also would hate.
Man, just get quality, bro. Quality, not leaving the audience with questions unless there's going to be a sequel to set up or a way to kind of answer those questions. And when there's not anything to kind of like back up what you're doing or back up your reasoning to the movie or the climaxes of the movie, certain scenes, there's nothing to back that up. It's just hard.
And I kind of
Especially
disagree
with
with you on that one.
an original film, where we have no background.
I personally I got to disagree with you on that one, man. Especially since everything more so without this whole movie and this whole film itself is literally based on like the culture and music and the relationships of community that goes around it. So I would say it's
Then
the
they
movie
should have
did its
left out the
job.
vampires. They should have left out the vampires. That proves my point right there. Boom.
No, but
Yeah.
the vampire is literally put into it to help with the film and stuff to make it all more
Bro, you
interesting
said
and
it was about
unique.
music. You said about music and culture, bruh. They should have left the damn vampires out.
Whatever, man. You wasn't way too much on the. I mean, you might be the only person I've literally heard to criticize this movie for being about vampires, probably or something, man. That is crazy.
Man, it's not. It's not. I saw the movie with people that were like, "Why the fuck they put the vampires in this movie?" So Victor is the same way. I'm not the only one.
Yeah, either way, the vampire movie, that is what it is. It was marketed like that. It is what it is. I say somebody just gotta leave it alone. Just go with how the movie is, honestly,
Yeah,
and
I'm
just
moving.
and just find all the good moments. Let's be honest here. Even
That's a
though with
bad.
all
That's
your
a bad way to look at it. Like, oh, just forget about the bad moments of a movie. Just look
oh
at the
no,
good.
I'm not saying
You know?
forget. I'm not saying forget about the bad moments. I'm saying forget about what you were thinking of what this movie was. And, it was marketed as such. Let's be honest here. Even if your criticisms are mostly valid, I feel like there's a lot more positive stuff for this movie than it is the bad ones that you're suggesting. That's all I'm saying. I mean, are there probably some criticisms in there? Yes, absolutely. Like, what movie isn't has criticism? But I feel like the more positive stuff that's put into this movie and the work and effort put in by like the writing, direction, and what it's trying to tell, those are like the best part of stuff they can get off that really show the top quality of this film as
Yep.
compared to like most of it that's come out this year so far.
And the quality of the film is up there. Like I said, I give the first movie a 10 out of 10. It was a 10 out of 10 until the vampires showed up to the juke joint and tried to get into the juke joint. From there, the quality of the movie goes down.
Well, that might be it for you.
Yeah.
For me, that just elevates it for me, man.
Nah, the quality of the movie went down. That's when the plot holes started coming in. That's when
Nah.
stuff didn't stop adding up. And I don't know. I'm not just gonna just go with the flow, you know.
I don't know. Maybe one day when you're older, a year later, and you give this movie another watch, maybe you'll start seeing more sense.
No, I don't think so, man. It's just the quality of the movie dropped. Yeah, there were no plot holes until the vampires came in, you know.
Well, I'm gonna disagree with you on that one, man. But hey, we all have our own opinions on it. We can't just do this whole thing back and forth. All then this thing is gonna last like 10 minutes more.
Yeah, I mean, we can end it. We can end it there. Then I'm not saying it's a bad movie, but I mean, quality of movie went down once the vampires entered the chat.
Well, let it be known that that's Wyatt's opinion. That is not mine. Well, but I think we reached the end of the video here. So, guys, tell us what you thought about it. Did you feel like the vampires thing lowered the quality? Did you think it elevated and helped with more of what the story wanted to tell? Please put that in the comments so that way maybe me and Wyatt can settle this by comments.
Let's do it. Throw it in the comments. I think that's it. Make sure y'all subscribe. Make sure you like this video. And like Alex said, make sure to comment down below your rating and if the movie would have been better without vampires or if you thought the movie was a 10 out of 10 with the vampires. Other than that, we're signing off, guys. It's been the Big Screen Show, and we'll see y'all for the next one.